In the beginning, socialism sprang not from the mind of one single philosopher, but arose as a response to the Industrial Revolution in the late 18th century. The stark contrast between the wealthy factory owners and the impoverished workers birthed the idea that wealth should be shared among those who produce it. By the mid-19th century, socialism had begun to crystallize as a political philosophy. Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels published the Communist Manifesto in 1848, advocating for the proletariat or working class to rise against the bourgeoisie, the capitalist class. They envisioned a classless society where the means of production were owned collectively. Fast forward to the early 20th century, socialism found its first major foothold in Russia. The Bolshevik Revolution of 1917, led by Vladimir Lenin, overthrew the Russian monarchy and established the world's first socialist state. However, under Stalin's rule, this socialist ideal morphed into a form of authoritarianism, deviating from the original concept of socialism. Meanwhile, across the Atlantic, socialism took a different path. In Western Europe, particularly in Scandinavia, democratic socialism emerged. This model sought to balance the ideals of socialism with the principles of democracy, providing comprehensive welfare and high levels of taxation, but without abolishing private property. In the late 20th century, socialism experienced a decline. The fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 symbolized the collapse of Soviet-style socialism. However, socialism didn't disappear. It adapted and evolved. Today, socialism still exists in various forms around the world. Countries like China and Cuba maintain a socialist system, though with significant adaptations. In China, for example, a unique blend of socialism and market economy has emerged, often referred to as socialism with Chinese characteristics. Meanwhile, democratic socialism continues to influence politics in many Western countries. Politicians advocating for universal health care, free education, and strong labor rights often draw on socialist principles, showing that the ideology remains relevant in the 21st century. In summary, socialism has a rich and diverse history, from its birth during the Industrial Revolution, through the turbulent times of the Russian Revolution and the Cold War, to its various forms in the present day. It's an ideology that has been both criticized and praised, demonized and idealized. It has adapted and evolved to fit different cultures and times, and continues to influence global politics and economies. Moving across the pond to the United States, the Democratic Party has often been associated with socialist ideals. Their push for universal health care, free education, and labor rights echoes the socialist ethos of equal access and opportunity for all. They advocate for wealth redistribution, another cornerstone of socialist ideology. However, the Democratic Party also champions elements of free market capitalism, such as competition and entrepreneurship. This is where it diverges from pure socialism. Thus, while the Democratic Party shares some socialist ideals, it also supports free market capitalism, distinguishing it from pure socialism. As we've explored the association between socialist ideals and Democratic Party policies in the United States, it's important to understand that socialism is not a monolithic concept. It exists on a spectrum ranging from democratic socialism, which champions political democracy alongside social ownership, to authoritarian socialism, which centralizes power and control in the state. Democratic socialism, as seen in parts of Western Europe, advocates for a democratic political system alongside a socialist economic system. This form of socialism believes in the redistribution of wealth and resources, but also values individual liberties and democratic decision-making processes. On the other end of the spectrum, authoritarian socialism, as seen in countries like North Korea, centralizes power in the state, often at the expense of individual freedoms. The state controls all means of production and distribution, with limited, if any, private enterprise. Between these two poles, there are numerous variations and adaptations of socialism, each reflecting the unique historical, cultural, and political contexts of the countries where they are practiced. This diversity of socialist practices underscores the complexity and dynamism of this ideology and helps us understand why the Democratic Party's policies in the United States can share some socialist ideals, yet diverge significantly from the practices of authoritarian socialist states. As we transition into our next scene, we'll delve deeper into the global impacts of socialism, exploring how this ideology has not only shaped national policies, but also influenced international relations and global politics. As we transition from the United States, it's critical to understand the broader impact of socialism on global politics. socialism as an ideology has not only influenced national policies, but also international relations and global dynamics. In the aftermath of World War II, the global political landscape was bifurcated into capitalist and socialist blocs, leading to the Cold War. This ideological divide has shaped international alliances and conflicts to this day. Countries like Cuba, Vietnam, and North Korea embraced socialism and became isolated, whereas China managed to integrate socialist principles with a unique form of capitalism, leading to its rise as a global powerhouse. In Europe, democratic socialism influenced the establishment of the welfare state, shaping the continent's politics and economics. Meanwhile, in Latin America, socialist ideas have fueled populist movements and initiated sweeping reforms. Socialism has also played a role in shaping the political discourse in the United States, with the Democratic Party incorporating some socialist ideals into their platform, as we've discussed in the previous scene. In conclusion, the influence of socialism extends far beyond national policies. It has indelibly marked the fabric of international relations and global politics. As we move forward, we can expect this influence to persist and evolve in response to the world's changing socio-political landscape. In the next scene, we will delve into the future of socialism, exploring potential trajectories and implications. Whether you perceive socialism as a symbol of equality and justice, or a portent of state control and inefficiency, delving into its history offers a richer understanding of its intricacies and paradoxes. The saga of socialism is far from its conclusion, and only time will reveal what awaits in Chapter 10. Like any ideology, socialism has its own set of challenges and pitfalls. While it is celebrated for its principles of equality and justice, it is equally important to address its failures. Economic inefficiencies often surface in a centrally planned economy. Under socialism, the state controls the means of production, which can lead to a lack of incentives for innovation and competition. Without these driving forces, productivity and economic growth can stagnate, leading to a lower standard of living. Historical examples underscore these economic challenges. The collapse of the Soviet Union, largely attributed to economic inefficiencies and systemic corruption, is a stark reminder of how socialism can go awry. Similarly, the economic struggles faced by Cuba and North Korea, both socialist countries, further underscore these issues. Implementing socialism in diverse and complex societies also presents its own set of challenges. It can be difficult, if not impossible, to create a one-size-fits-all approach to economic and social governance, given the unique circumstances and needs of different populations. These failures provide a cautionary tale about the potential pitfalls of socialism. They remind us that while the principles of socialism may be appealing, their implementation requires careful consideration and adaptability to local conditions. In the wake of the failures of socialist policies, we now turn our attention to the clear and present dangers of socialism. Critics argue that socialism, while noble in intent, can lead to economic inefficiencies and the potential for authoritarian rule. The centralization of power inherent in socialist systems can create an environment ripe for corruption and misuse of power. Without the checks and balances typically found in democratic systems, leaders can consolidate power, leading to authoritarian rule, as seen in Venezuela and North Korea. Moreover, the economic model of socialism often leads to inefficiencies. With the state controlling the means of production, there is little room for competition, which is a key driver for innovation and progress. This can result in economic stagnation and a lower standard of living for the populace. Implementing socialist policies in diverse societies also poses significant challenges. Each society has its unique set of circumstances, needs, and cultural norms. A one-size-fits-all approach, often seen in socialist systems, can lead to social unrest and economic disparity. The dangers of socialism are not just historical footnotes. They represent very real and current concerns that must be considered when discussing the merits and pitfalls of this ideology. As we move forward, it is crucial to learn from the past to avoid repeating the same mistakes.